Californication seems to be spouting dissonant meanings. In one scene, Hank fantasizes about being a family man and holding up to that responsibility. And the other side, Hank fantasizes about being with lots of ladies, whoever will have him, and drinking and just getting money by his weird life. In the first scene, we have Hank show up without pants to show that he's crazy with the ladies, and these things just kind of happen to him.
Ladies, Daddy's trying out a new look. What do you think?
Dad?
Wanna come with me? I wonder what it would be like if I went down a little bit different path than video essay YouTube videos. Hey, welcome to my inebriation station. Welcome to my drink chicken. The first thing you have to do is get a recipe from the internet and then print it out. Dude, bro, bro. Today, I'm gonna teach you how to pick up chicks like the man, Hank Moody. I have a problem with being pandered to. Because whenever it happens, it's usually because there's a lack in quality in some other part of the production. That's why adult films lack narrative, and why anime is just anime. I don't know about any pandering that happens on this YouTube channel. Californication is a show about a writer, Hank Moody, and his zany life with crazy people. I want to talk about Californication because it's a good show, and I like it a lot. But also because the only other videos that seem to be about Californication are like weird pickup videos where you try to learn game. You know, how to hook up with women like Hank Moody. And I think that, you know, the people that look at Californication as just like something to aspire to, as something that they want to be, to have game and pick up women, kind of misses the forest for the swimsuit poster. Right, Hank has game. And you know why? He always has something interesting to say. He picks up the phone, he'd be like, call my phone. Morgue, you spill him, we kill him. Hank Moody has so many interesting things to say. It's like he's an interesting person, and he has interests that he looks after, and he reads books, and like, he has an entire team of writers writing everything he says. You could be that interesting too. So episodes of Californication are about Hank Moody zipping around to disparate locations in Hollywood, where he then interacts with peoples that all have like ongoing storylines. Each episode is pretty much a day. At first when I saw the show, I'm like, yeah, no, that doesn't seem like a very big day. That's like your whole day. When do you work? He doesn't work in the season. The second thing is, yeah, that is an entire day because it takes time to get to each of those locations. So a huge part of like the show is his car, his Porsche, which he uses to zip around Los Angeles all the time. So each location adds to the storyline of the overall show, but also has the location of the singular characters that belong there and have tragic and sometimes zany consequences to it and ending. So in one sense, the show is an ensemble show about Hank's life. Just about every character is in every episode, and kind of goes on in their own soap operas, but instead of where the soap opera goes through like 20 characters and they all 5-minute segments, every character is connected by Hank visiting them. Also, each of these storylines is openly sensual or raunchy in one way or another, or somehow leads to Hank sleeping with a random woman, and this adds to the show's pandering effect. Now, recipes from the internet are going to have some times there. Can you read that? No? Recipes from the internet are gonna tell you things like prep time 20 minutes, cook time 45 minutes, but they're lying. They're lying. It's gonna take you a good hour to prepare whatever the food is. So the first thing you do is print off the thing with your printer if your printer can work. Next thing you do is figure out where your girlfriend stashed all the ingredients. Which one of these green dildos is the zucchini? One marinara. Did I say what we're making? Today we're making ratatouille. Marinara sauce? I thought marinara was white. Alright, then you're gonna need yellow onion. Where'd it go? Yellow onion. Eggplant. It's pretty much a black zucchini. Yellow squash. Pretty much a yellow eggplant. You have to find the goddamn Roma tomato. Onion substitutes for tomatoes, right? Remember, if you ever don't have Ingredients. You can just drive to the store. Drive to the store now. Now you have... Oh, that's the wrong one. Now you have your tomatoes. My bottle opener is a fidget spinner. It's been an hour already. I told you it takes an hour to prepare. Salt and pepper. They actually only have fresh basil, so I'm just going to throw it in the microwave. Oregano. Then some shredded mozzarella. But, you know, I don't have a shredder or a little grinder, so I'm going to do it by hand, so it's going to take an hour. But this show is pandering in more than one way. The other way that the show is pandering is they put a whole lot of literary references in there. There's a Dean character. Let's call him Dean Koontz. Literary and wordplay references in it, as well as classic rock and other things that, you know, maybe older people, middle-aged people would recognize, like talking about how dumb Twitter is. So, on an average day from any season, Hank could be strolling through Venice neighborhoods, over the bridges with his daughter, and then drive over to the writer's room, where he learns about how he's messed up in some way, and that adds to the story of him trying to make the television show. And then he visits Charlie, where he learns about Charlie's deteriorating marriage, and weird things happen with his secretary. Meantime, he's trying to then visit Karen and get some good family time in. But then he gets a phone call from Mia, and she says she's in danger, and she's blackmailing him, so he has to go rescue her from a party. And then he shows back up at Bill's house, where Karen yells at him for not, you know, being a good father to their actual daughter. Then Hank finds himself in a bar or a party where he makes a mistake or indulges himself that ultimately makes things worse, but makes him feel a little better in the meantime. And then just scatter random closeless parts in there. Every season has these multiple storylines that are going on that seem to contradict or even have nothing to do with each other, but then end up tied in together at the end, or intersect in super interesting ways that are really fun to follow and watch. Step one to get chicks. No one wants to talk to you if you ain't got nothing good to say. Clip right here. This is Hank picking up a chick who's trying to sell him a car. First, he's gonna act not interested and run away. That lets the goat know that there's some mystery to him. You have to chase after, bro.
You.
I'm fine.
Are you okay?
I got enough fight.
What do you mean?
Okay. I have,
Hank?
No,
What?
I need to tell you something.
Okay. What is... Hank? What? What could possibly be this bad? You look...
What's that clip? Alright, then he has the girl's attention. He says something cool. He reels her in. She's interested. Maybe she's trying to sell him a car. Bro.
Off that fucking phone before I stuff it up your ass. I'm done.
Hey, buddy.
What, are you kidding me?
I kid you not, sir. Shame on you.
Mind your own business.
Oh, come on. You don't want to be that guy, do you? Look at her. She's perfect. She's drop dead. She's firecrackers on the 4th. You'll never do better, but she can. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. I need you to play the car scene. You know, the one where he scores with the girl who's trying to sell him the car. Bro.
Poor gal's Martha Stewart. But what you really want to do is sit at home on the couch with some poor sap watching reality TV while he watches you get fatty. If I manage to get out here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I can still make it home in time to watch America's Next Top Model.
Yeah, no, I want you to play the scenes where he like puts his hand, he like walks away real cool, and then talking and she's smiling. And then I want you to put the clip where they bang. Bro.
I think they're actually fighting.
No, I want you to skip the part where he pays cash for a Porsche that she's gonna get a lot of money from. Skip the clip where he stands up to a guy being real piggish to another woman. Just bro. Just skip those. Skip anything to. No, just skip those. Episode 1, the whole thing is kicked off by Hank doing, I guess, a very literary thing. Now, Hank flirts with a woman who's reading his book, and then beds that woman. And then he finds out that woman is nay a woman, but nigh a 16-year-old child. But not only that, but the child of his soulmate, I have a lot of problems with that, of his baby mama Karen's fiancé, Bill, is his daughter. Hank slept with his stepdaughter. Hank bedded his daughter's stepsister. But this stepsister is a bit of a crazy person and also enjoys messing with Hank as the pseudo-villain for the season and the next coming seasons, and this complicates and drives forward the story. For sure recommend the first 4 seasons of this show. Season 1 is all about Hank not being able to write a thing, wanting to get back together with Karen, and wanting to keep Mia far away from his life. And then when he does write something, it's stolen by Mia, and Hank still is heading towards Karen getting married to a person he super hates. Season 2 is a huge literary reference as Hank becomes best friends with Gatsby, like the Great Gatsby. His name is Ashby. Season 2 is an entire Great Gatsby reference in it, where Ashby has parties, is a rocker, and Hank is hired to write his memoirs for Ashby. And that... And it ends tragically, but all the while he's still trying to get back together with Karen. Season 3, Hank becomes a teacher for a college and becomes involved with a writing student and a fellow teacher who's the dean's wife and another teacher. The season where he's a teacher seems to be all about learning, where he learns about the toxic effects of his attitudes and how that affects people, with several run-ins with his students and also his daughter, Mia. And Mia goes public. So season 4, we have trial. Season 4 is a huge turnover in the story because it's the payoff for episode 1 where Mia goes public with what with what the both of them did. It's revealed that the book that she wrote and published is actually Hank's, has an ongoing relationship with his lawyer.
Guilty.
Don't say that.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
Who then, of course, disappears at the end of the season. And also, Hank begins production in the movie of the book that Mia took credit for, but he really wrote, but he's writing the movie script for. So there's run-ins with Hollywood and the actress. He's essentially a scriptwriter, season 4. Now, when I was rewatching it, I felt like seasons 5, 6, and 7 kind of go down in quality, but what they do is still kind of, what 5 does is still kind of interesting, and it's still, better than reality TV shows, so I watched it all. Also, I was pandered to, and that does keep me going on some level. The end of season 4, Hank moved back to New York, but for season 5, he's mysteriously back in Los Angeles. He has a couple of excuses, but he seems he's avoiding something that happened in New York. He spends a lot of time in Charlie's house, where Charlie is wishing that he could get back together with his ex-wife. It's really heavy in the themes of running away. No matter how bad it kind of gets, every season still kind of has a theme, even though it's kind of rehashing the old. It gets a little rehashy at this point. So Hank is once again writing a script, but instead it's scripts for a rapper. He's doing Childish Gambino-esque rapper, but instead of writing and directing everything, the rapper is just starring in it, and it's more his vehicle. And Hank has a relationship with the rapper, and then the rapper's girlfriend, who is also running away from something in New York. So the themes tie together really well, and the whole time there's this fatalistic danger. I guess they've replaced it since they're out of the, Hank might go to jail thing from season 4. And at the same time, he's visiting Karen, who he's kind of given up on, but at the same time still has feelings for, but she has gotten married to someone completely different, and his daughter has a nice calm little life. It's nice. It's the weird. It's so weird. I want to focus on the part where I could give advice, Alright, so in this clip we're gonna see Hank Moody playing hard to get, making
But I didn't know.
Oh, the manner.
It's your word against hers, and
Sorry, but
no one believes a word out of your mouth.
I thought I was charming.
not that charming.
What was it? That was in the clip. What was that? What was that even? I don't know how to contextualize that into picking up. Bro! Season 6 hard feels like a rehash because now he's helping write something for like a hair rocker, like a Kiss-esque kind of thing, and he has a relationship with a roadie. He starts out like in rehab after some really hard stuff that in the finale of season 5. And several plot lines from season 5 that might be ongoing are just kind of dropped with like people just like staring down Hank and then them ending it. This is the point where it really felt like the episodes were slowing down. I thought, oh man, why is the show only half an hour long when it used to be like an hour? And upon reflection, the show was always a half an hour long. It just feels like it drags on for me, which is very weird to have Data smack you in the face like that when you're like, oh man, they shortened the show. Then Marilyn Manson's there for some reason? Marilyn Manson's in the show. I guess he likes it, but also, I'm confused. It feels so weird. Like the show stops and gapes at Marilyn Manson for a while. I don't... Season 6 is a huge change and drop off, but it's still recognizably the same show. Like, Hank gets full on hired to be a television writer and writes for a television show, but at the same time, his girlfriend from before he met Karen arrives, and she has a son, and it is his son? So it's Hank dealing with being a father, again, but some more. And while he's dealing with that, he kind of ignores his own daughter. And I still don't know what to think about this episode, because so much of it is bad and like trying to like relive the past, but that was like a theme to the previous season and also kind of a theme to this season. It's just kind of messy and takes little bits and parts of the previous show and kind of incorporates it to it. So once again, we're igniting the old flame and we're trying to give away and we're having weird things. But also Hank has this thing where his son is a loser and Hank tries to teach his son to be a little bit more like him. It's kind of weird. It's not why I love this show. I love this show because of the complicated storylines and watching them collide. Like season 3, where he's a teacher, there is some awesome points where it's not dawned on you that Karen is unaware of this world at the school, and all of a sudden like there's these worlds colliding and Karen gets to see like, oh, these people are crazy, and it's kind of fantastic. I loved it a lot, and it does that at a lot of little points in there, and that's why I love the show, because the characters are interesting. It's very satisfying in a way where you have two groups of friends or even two sides of your family, and you imagine what it would be like if they all collided together, and then you could also listen to those interactions, and they could play off each other, and their craziness can kind of build, and they can get along, and it would be funny in entertaining ways that you see yourself. But my significant other points out would be prohibitively expensive to bug all the tables at your wedding and plan it so that might happen. But it seems cool. So the show constantly balances between these two forces: Hank's zany, lovely, hot life, and Hank's also fulfilling, neat, kind of zany family life that he wants to bring together. And he's always caught between these two things and thinking that one will destroy the other. But of course the family is a little bit more precious to him. But he always comes back to this, to the philandering, to the parties, to the drinking, to the substances. I don't know if I can say drugs. Alright. Prep work. Slice up the onion and put it in the bottom of the tray and layer it with marinara sauce. You're gonna slice everything up and then put it like this all on top of each other. Then you're gonna add all the stupid seasoning. You're gonna add your stupid marinara sauce and then you're gonna shove it in the stupid oven Set it to like 400. Check it, you can just put your head inside of here. Oh, wait, you have to cover it with foil for 30 minutes and then remove it for the last 10 to 15 minutes and add cheese. Then you're done. But the show works really well because Hank's escapism is also your escapism. After a kind of intense scene where his daughter has problems, you want to go see what Charlie's doing in the crazy Charliness to see if somebody is, like, spanking him or whatever. Hank's escapism is your escapism in the show. It's the cool down after the drama, and sometimes that makes more drama happen, and it's shocking and exciting. It's you just got off of a heavy shift at work and you're trying to drive home, and you've driven in the wrong lane, and you had to cut through some traffic, and you realize that your blinker's been on for the last half a mile. It's that kind of relief. It's that kind of escapism. So at the same time, the show builds up these things and celebrates them, but also knocks them down and says they're bad in so many subtext and text. Like how Hank is supposed to be a writer, and writers are supposed to be creative and make worlds and make these kind of zany situations and make life make sense in a way, in a narrative. But yet, what he does is loosely adapt his life, which isn't greatly creative. It's why it feels kind of poopy whenever a movie ends with then the main character writing the movie or writing the novel that becomes the movie. The weird, terrible things were real all along, and all the person had to do was take his experience and then write it into a book, and that's what became this. It's kind of off-putting in that way, and there are several people that poop on writing. How the agents say they can sell anything as long as there's like words, they'll be able to sling it to an audience. Directors and the filmmakers and actors don't really care what the script says. If they do whatever, it's the girls that are going to sell the show. When Hank is actually writing on a show with a writing team, people care more about positioning and politics than writing the actual episodes. And what he writes is kind of meaningless because it's going to go to crappy actors. Not to mention, an inexperienced, unpublished high school girl gets a hold of a first draft of a novel. Mia gets a hold of a first draft of a novel and then is able to tweak it and sell it to an agent as her own. And that is able to be published and becomes a fantastic seller. They're really, first drafts are a lot of work. Like, there has to be like 8 drafts before a professional publishing company will publish a novel. Depending on the author, it could be 2 or 3, but there are multiple drafts, and they make radical differences. The writers of the show are really selling that short. In God Hates Us All by Hank Moody, this is the tie-in book that goes with the first season of the show. It was supposed to be the novel that Hank wrote that made him move to Hollywood so they could actually make this into a movie that he hates. In this, not Hank Moody, is a drug dealer and goes to disparate parts of New York City where zany characters continue on their stories, and eventually it collides into an overall story where he has to do something big and romantic to get to a woman, to capture the woman he loves. And it's pretty much his life. It's pretty much an episode of Californication, the show. So Hank doesn't do more than loosely adapt his own life in like a series of like erotic memoirs. This might be able to explain narratively, because it's implied in season 6 that Hank's about to go off and make a show that is Californication. Like it suggested that he go and do his own show. So it's kind of, if there's a season 8, it would be behind the scenes of season 1, I guess. Because Hank is just continuing his life as it has always been, even when he was a teenager in New York, because that's what he wrote his first novel about. And every novel or thing that he produces is just an adaptation of the previous season that you saw. So the movie glorifies writing and writers and put these homages in there, but it also kicks it down and knocks it down and says Hank isn't very good. It's kind of, it's what it is. Only in dreams. So yeah, that's how you can pick up chicks like Hank Moody. I don't know why this is the only YouTube video about Californication. What is... No, never mind. Skip all the clips where he's pining for a relationship and how it's not very fulfilling. I want people to pick up, not have a meaningful connection with a woman like they're a person and have interests of their own and can also be interesting. Those look good. Can I have one of those? Thanks, bro. So I'm not sure if the show is like trying to just put enough information for both sides of a topic that it imagines that you can just pick on whatever one it works, or if it is trying to be fair to the subject, or if it's just trying to throw it all out there. It seems it could be complex, but the both sides thing seems to be super simplistic, especially in this case. The gender politics are also all over the place that I'm not sure is on purpose or illustrative. I'm sure it's a little bit of both. One thing is trans women. Like, you don't see trans men in the show, but trans women in one season are considered traps and surprises, and another season are fully embraced and thought to be okay. Another season, Hank is openly encouraging it, and another season, Hank is making fun of Charlie for having an incident with a trans woman that he enjoys. See, that just shows kind of back up and down, and it might go into different writers coming in, and might go into learning and accepting and kind of the social justice coming up and them understanding it better, or which that's likely what I think it is. But when you pay attention to the show as it goes, you see these kind of shifting in moods as we go on, and there's nothing that really causes it. It's kind of everything that happens like backstage in the back of it. So on one side, the show is very clear about saying what consenting adults do is perfectly fine. But the other side, the women in the show are very much so eye candy. I guess some of the men. It's a male gaze kind of show. So, pandering. Hank has an intimate time with a 16-year-old girl, but it is cast as like not his fault and her lying about it, which is kind of trouble. But then she's also, like, clearly 18 because there's clothes off for it. So she's not actually a 16-year-old. But she's still, the camera goes all up and down her body. All the time. Up and down. But at the same time, these women seem to have their own characteristics and needs. In a lot of ways, the lens of the show is also the lens of Hank Moody and what Hank Moody thinks of the world as it evolves. Each of these women are on one side candy, they're objects, but on the other side, their needs and their desires are all acknowledged. They get angry, they get spiteful, they get their revenge, they're right, they're wrong, they feel bad about being wrong, and they get revenge for that. This show does that balancing act really well, and it especially like in the characters of his daughter Becca and his daughter's mother Karen, who he is in love with forever. And Becca reflects a lot of problems or toxicity with Hank's worldview. That's just about one of the first things she does in the first episode, when she gets in trouble for kissing boys, and when the teacher tells her she's in trouble for it, she asks, how else am I supposed to get boys to like me? And it's this weird kind of heart-jerking moment for Hank, and you feel that, and it happens a lot, especially with Becca's boyfriends, where quite a few of them reflect some attitude in Hank that he then sees is wrong, but also keeps doing later on in the show. It's like this weird repeat kind of you never learn and also you kind of learn thing, where Hank will think that his behavior is bad and beat himself up about it, but not actually change anything. So we start to hear several lines or like mantras repeat. When Hank's father says, I've never been with a woman I didn't love, at least for a little while. That kind of feeling or attitude continues on in several more of the characters, where Becca's first boyfriend's like, this other girl wanted to kiss me. How could I say no? She's so nice for wanting to kiss me. Or when Hank does it, Becca's later boyfriend ends up sleeping around because he can and has the power to. He's like, why wouldn't I? They're so nice. Women are so nice. But there's like a million tiny things about the show that I kind of love. Like that, there's several phrases that keep getting repeated from one person to another, and sometimes they're passed along, and sometimes they just come from disconnected characters, and you're not sure if it's the writers giving a joke or if they forgot they put that line somewhere else in the show. So Hank's crises come from this thought, this paranoia that his life has to go in one way or the other, or that his family is going to be destroyed, and he's going to be too toxic to deal with anyone at some point. But it keeps on going straight down the middle, where Hank has both worlds, doing both of the things. It occurs to me that that is kind of the message of the show, that we don't have to bow to fate, or that fate is largely a construction of narrative in the post. So narratively, Hank feels like he should be destroying his life, or his life is destroyed because of his actions, but it never really does. There are setbacks and there are consequences, but there's no bad, evil ending. There's no bad action that then gives this punishment that Hank has to deal with. So this is Hank's life. Hank has the free will to go to either side, or to change his life, or to live in the middle. That's kind of the point of the show, I think. That we have free will, and that our lives don't bend to an overarching narrative structure, but those structures still make sense of our lives. Alright, so you missed the first step, which was slice up the onion and put it in the bottom of the tray and layer it with marinara sauce. I thought there had to be sauce on the bottom. So then you're going to say into the camera, slice up the onion and put it in the bottom of your tray with marinara sauce, and then layer things on top of it. So you can put it in the beginning of the video. Alright, prepare the onion, try not to cry. Then you're going to take every layer from one pan and put it in another, prepare the bottom layer and put it back on over it. Luckily, it's like dominoes. All done. I have seen this show so many times and thought so much about it, and at the same time, the pandering and the shameful aspect of it is what's kept me from really sharing it. So I guess this video is kind of running that line of acknowledging the things that could have been and the things that aren't and the things that are kind of bad about it. When I first watched the show, I was very much so sad. It was the Dark Ages of Raymond. And it encouraged me to write in several ways. An episode would end and I would hear that music and I'd be like, yeah, I just want to write something. And I would. So in a lot of ways, this show is kind of inspirational in that aspect. As I grow older and as I learned more and more about different perspectives of different people of the world and was able to empathize with them, I was able to see the problems with the show and the problems that the show saw in the show, and I was able to see that the show knew that on some level, or at least learned it in a later season. And it's crazy in a way how responsive this show was to my growth. There's a lot to love about the show, if it's the narrative structure, if it's the eye candy, if it's the references, if it's the jokes, because this is a really funny show too in several ways. But also there is that possibility that you might think it's bad and trash, because it kind of is. But that's alright, I think. There is no fate, there is free will, and you are free to make the choices that are available to you. And also make other people's lives better or worse on your random actions that you don't really comprehend. It's good. It's still really good. No shame season. Be sure to like the video if it made you like it. If you're gonna leave a crappy comment, I think someone's gonna delete it. Someone's gonna play hard to get with your comment. Got Ray Richards, the Sugar Ray's Patreon. He writes stuff, like interesting stuff. No, you want him to tell you interesting things to say on the phone? He'll do that. He'll do that for you, Brohim. He'll do it. Bro, I should have worn a tighter shirt. Watching, bro.
Like this video, leave a comment why you should or shouldn't watch Californication, or if you did, what your thoughts were, if you also felt that level 5, season 5, like, drop off in quality but still stuck with it or not. Like, subscribe, comment, Patreon. Those are my 4 things. Those are the 4 ending things. If you like this episode on free will, I suggest this other episode on free will. Yeah.